Hi, I am needing a little bit of a chat with myself to kind of anchor myself into trusting myself again, because there's a narrative that kind of wants to try, there's a narrative in my head that is attached to a falling out that I had with someone at the beginning of the year. And it attacks this like wounding of I can't tell what I don't have like a perfectly boxed name for it, but it's the fear that surrounds the helplessness that you can feel when other people dictate your image to others, and when you feel like your voice doesn't really mean anything, or no, not that. It's the fear of like having your identity and your sovereignty used as like a tool in somebody else's narrative. And so it's like a twisting of your value that you have no control over. And that, sorry, my bunny's just trying to like rip apart any piece of this garden that she can, apparently. Yeah, I don't know, it's this feeling of, it's this feeling of fear and helplessness, and also a really confusing feeling of how do I find trust again? What can I trust? Is the question that my heart seems to be circling around when this narrative comes into my head. I start to feel really disembodied and really helpless and out of control, and I look for I look for something to anchor to. I look for something to trust. I look for something to, ground me. And sometimes I try to tell myself that like I want to believe that because in this situation it's towards this person, and it doesn't help that my anxiety has like some fuel, because I've seen this person have falling outs with other people, and I've seen them readily talk about the person they have a falling out with and just go wild on this person's name. Sometimes rightfully so, sometimes not. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, I've just seen somebody act a certain way, and so when I try to come back to myself and go, you don't know that that's happening. You don't know for sure, this is just your fear projecting. Then my fear can come back and be like, well, it's also not out of this person's character. So if it is happening, what can you stress about? Stress about what they could be saying. Stress about how to defend yourself. Stress about how to, get defensive, feel anxious, feel attacked. And it's just this loop of confusion where I just start attacking myself so I can figure out my defenses. And it stresses me out. You can't tell. And yeah, so I get myself into this tizzy of not knowing, first of all, feeling like I'm in a tizzy, and it takes me a little bit to understand why I'm so stressed and what I'm searching for, and eventually I figure out what I'm searching for is like, okay, I need to get out of this. And initially my thought's always just to push away the thought, and sometimes it works. Like sometimes I can just tell myself like, all right, you're actually not involved in this situation anymore. This person has nothing to do with your life anymore, and anything that happens outside of you is completely out of your control. So leave it at that and find peace in that. And sometimes that works. Other times it doesn't work. And I'm in one of those other times today. And that doesn't feel like enough for me right now. It doesn't feel like enough. I don't feel, or I haven't felt, because I'm feeling a little bit more grounded now, but for a little bit this morning, like I wasn't at ease, and that through line of surrender to it, it's fine, wasn't feeling like enough. I was still feeling the need to like stress and make myself scared for all the people that could be hating me and I don't even know, or believing me to be a certain way and I don't even know. And I've been in a situation like this before where it's happened, and it's taken a year for people to like, well, it hasn't taken a year, but a year had passed, and then people started showing up in my life being like, oh my god, I'm so sorry I believed what so and so ever said about you. And I was just completely caught off guard, and I was like, what? Sorry? Just like oblivious to the fact of like what was going on behind my eyes, I guess. And now I'm scared that's happening again. And yeah, I just feel helpless in some sense. And I was just looking in the car, I was just thinking, I was like, what can I trust? Because sometimes I like to, not sometimes, but in these situations, I try to like turn towards the light, and I try to, you know, like tell myself, like, you don't know that that person's doing that. Don't just let your fear and your anxiety cast a shadow onto this person, because they could very well not be doing that, like I was saying earlier. But that doesn't feel like enough right now. I feel like my shadow is stronger than the light, because my shadow is finding all this evidence to back it up, and I'm like, oh, fuck. Now I just feel cornered, and I'm like, I don't know where to go, because this narrative is just sinking its teeth deeper and deeper into my buttery soft little defenseless brain. And I couldn't find anything to trust. I couldn't find a point of the story to trust. I couldn't find like a way to turn it to trust. Like, so, like there's also the whole thing of like, well, the people that know you won't believe this person, or they'll come and ask you to clarify. They'll like come and ask you to speak. Like if this person is saying anything, if somebody knows you, they'll come and say to you like, hey, this. I just wanted to know, like, what was your experience? Or is this true? Or this is what this person's saying, and I just wanted to like understand like if that's the truth, or like what's going on. And like the comeback of my shadow to that is that like, who does that? You know, a lot of the time, even me, like people just take things for what people say and just go, oh, okay, I guess that person's fucked then. And then it's what I hear in my head coming back from that is the relinquishing, like, okay, well, if that's that, and that's that. It's just this tug of war that's going on inside of me of fear and defenselessness, and feeling like I'm at the mercy of my own fear and my own worst anxieties and my own worst predictions. And every time I try to tense up or push it away or fight back or anything, I just feel exhausted. And then each time I like surrender to it a little bit, part of my heart feels like it breaks, and then part of my heart feels like it just like eases, of just going, okay, then I guess there's nothing I can do. I guess there's no reason why I have to clench. I guess there's no reason why I have to have resistance, because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And I literally have no control over it. And that's the point where a part of my heart breaks. And I think the suffocating feeling today is that it's just feeling like a little bit too much to keep surrendering, and I can't seem to find a point of strength. Or I guess I hadn't been able to find like that point of, but it's going to be okay because of this. And I was thinking in the car, and what essentially like finally bogged into my brain was that if I can't find anything to trust in the situation outside of me, I'm going to have to find a way to trust myself, and for that to be enough. And I really started to like allow things to come at me in that moment. That sounds like, I started to stop trying to fight back with my mind. I started to just go, okay, if I allowed this to be my reality and if I let it all consume me, how would I actually be okay? Because at the moment I was just fighting my mind with my mind and going blah, 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 and going back and forth like this tennis match around anxiety. And I just let myself like sink into the story that my mind was trying to instigate. And which sounds counterintuitive, which is why it took me a while to do it. I was like, this doesn't sound like a good idea, but I did it. And let myself be attacked by all my worst fears. And I tried to like just take a minute to see what I was holding on to in that moment of feeling of like, I don't know, like, I don't know if you do that, but like when you can just kind of let yourself get overcome with a delusion, a reality, a projection, and it's like your body like assimilates into like what's actually happening in some like weird Piscean delusion way. And I was trying to feel into what my being was holding on to, and it was that I was holding on to myself, and I was holding on to like truly only me. And that sounds like lonely and isolating in a way, but it was also exactly what I needed in another way. And that's what kind of stopped the delusion having power over me since. Like, this is maybe like 20 minutes ago. And I just found myself realizing that, like, especially with the mind, like, it's such a place of like, it's so flexible and it's so tangible. No, it's not tangible. It's so malleable. And I often find myself trying to battle my anxiety, and I often find myself trying to, if an anxious thought or intrusive thought comes in, I try to like swat it off and hope that I swat it off quick enough. But sometimes it gets into me, and then I just keep trying to fight, and I'm fighting my own mind, and I just get into this mode of both being attacking or antagonizing and defensive. And it becomes exhausting, and I just often then get so worked up inside my own head, and it can take away hours of my time, and it can take so much out of my mind, and I end up just losing myself entirely and working myself into the past. And today there was something in my brain that just, one part of me just stopped fighting entirely and surrendered to everything. Not just surrendering to that higher truth of like, you just don't have any power and it's okay to be like that, and if people are going to do whatever they're going to do, they're going to do whatever they're going to do, and that's nothing of your problem. Because that's one way to get out of it. Today that wasn't working. I just let everything hit me. Like, I just let it all hit me. I just let any potential idea of what this person could be twisting me into, what this person could be saying, how people could be thinking of me, why they'd be thinking of me, the consequences of those thoughts and actions and words, and what that would mean for my connections and friendships and my public image and my personal image, the image of myself, what I might have to reconcile with, how I might have to see myself. I just let it all kind of like hit me at once. And I just found myself like holding on to just like a little light of my own. And it kind of washed over me like a wave. What's in my head is it's like it was like something that seemed so big and so damning. Sometimes how when you're in the ocean and you know how sometimes there's waves that crack or they break, waves that break and then start to tumble and like turn into just like rolling, and then sometimes there's the waves that look like they're about to crack but then they kind of just turn into those waves that just kind of move. It looked like one of those. It looked like a wave that was about to break, and I just kept on like fighting it or trying to swim away from it or whatever. And when I let it hit me, it just turned into one of those like pleasant waves that was like, and then it was all out of my head. And then I was fine. And then I found peace. And I felt okay. And from what I can understand, it was because she's so cute. I don't think I knew how to find an anchor, and if I was fighting, if I was too busy fighting my own mind, I don't think I had the mental capacity to actually be in, you know, antagonist and defensiveness mode, and also then try to find my center and find a point of grounding and to find an anchor and to find like the point that would just hold me and steady me through any of anything, be it real or not. And it's so funny with this kind of stuff is that like, you know, like there's always different solutions for everything. And it's like I've said, like sometimes the whole surrender to your like surrender to the idea that you have no power and let the actions of others speak for themselves and not for you, that kind of idea. Sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it's enough when it just creeps in and I'm like, no, I'm just not going to think about that today. I don't have any energy. It's not happening. It's not in my world. Like there's different barriers that I feel like I have, and if each barrier there's different resolutions and there's different things that close the door back up and that like let everything pass. And I haven't had to encounter this one in a little bit, like the one where I just feel completely helpless and just let my mind win in some way. And then it's a beautiful lesson of like, oh, my mind might have won, but like my heart is what kept me together. I don't love that the sun has decided to come out of the tree. I mean, I do, but I also don't. But also maybe I'm done talking. Maybe that's the time to wrap it up. Maybe that's it. Feels like it. Anyway, just in case you're on one of those journeys, I hope it doesn't stress you out too much if like your usual like resolutions aren't working. Maybe there's just a different way that you have to interact with whatever you're going through at the moment. Maybe if you're trying to fight something, stop fighting it. Especially if you're fighting yourself, stop fighting it. Just let yourself be. I don't know. Oh, there's a butterfly. It's on its last legs. Your wings are a bit tattered. Anyway, I'm gonna go. Have a fun Mercury retrograde. Take care of yourself. Be kind to yourself. The butterfly is so pretty.